You've been there, right? It's late, you're on a long drive, and you pull into this nearly empty gas station. The lights are humming, the world is quiet, and it just feels a little off. Well, today, we're jumping right into that feeling. We're going to break down 3 true stories that take this super normal pit stop and turn it into the backdrop for some genuine horror. We're going to look at what fear really looks like. Right, so we are not easing into this at all. We're starting right at the moment of pure jaw-on-the-floor shock. I mean, just imagine you're working the night shift, it's dead quiet, and this is what walks through your door. This one single, terrifying image is exactly where our first story kicks off with a gas station clerk named David. So, David's story starts with a threat that is completely physical. It's right there in your face. He's working the graveyard shift, at one of those lonely gas stations, way out in the middle of nowhere. It's the kind of quiet where you can hear a pin drop, right up until the bell on the front door chimes and shatters the silence. And what walks in is something his brain just can't process. On the left, you've got what he's actually seeing. This tall guy just drenched in what David later called a cartoonish amount of blood. And his eyes, totally empty. But on the right, that's what's happening inside his head. Just paralyzing fear. The sight is so unreal, it's like it short-circuits his brain. But every instinct is screaming one thing: danger. And then, the man speaks. And he says this, a line that's supposed to sound reassuring, right? But of course, it does the exact opposite. It confirms David's absolute worst fear. If the blood isn't his, it's someone else's. And that's the moment David knows, for sure, that he's standing in front of a killer. And this, right here, is where it all goes from 0 to 100 real fast. You can see the chain reaction. It starts with the shock of him walking in. Then, that horrifying reassurance. David actually manages to get the guy to leave, and the second he's gone, he's on the phone to 911. But he's seen. The man comes storming back in, and in a flash, he's flying over the counter. This isn't just a threat anymore. This is a full-on, brutal fight for his life.
Okay, so he's pinned down, the guy's strangling him, and he has basically one move left. He just screams that he has the gun. It's a total lie, a complete bluff born out of sheer terror. But, you won't believe it, it actually works. The attacker just stops, scrambles up, and runs. He's gone, leaving David there covered in somebody else's blood. An insane, violent encounter with no answers. But the story's not over, not even close.
Now, you'd think that would be it, right? The single worst night of your life, end of story. But months later, back at that same gas station, the horror came back. Only this time, it wasn't a physical attack. No, this next threat was way more sinister. It was a straight-up campaign of psychological terror. So, a new guy walks into the store. But this one, he looks totally out of place. He's in this expensive, perfectly tailored suit. He doesn't look around, he doesn't buy anything. He walks right up to David, reaches into his jacket, and pulls out a photograph. And it's a picture of the guy covered in blood from months ago. The man in the suit asks David if he recognizes the man in the photo. David's gut instinct just screams at him to say no, to deny everything. So he does. The man just stares at him with these cold, calculating eyes and lets the silence just hang there. Then, right as he's turning to leave, he looks back at David and says this before walking out. And from that point on, it becomes this constant, low-grade terror. It's not a one-and-done thing anymore. A couple weeks after the photo, a silver SUV just starts appearing. Everywhere David goes, there it is. A week later, a rock comes crashing through his living room window. A message, loud and clear without a single word. It just builds and builds until David realizes his only way out is to run. And when you put the two encounters side by side, you see these two totally different types of fear. The first one was that immediate life-or-death physical terror. But the second one? That was all in his head. The stalking, the intimidation, it created this constant, lingering dread, a paranoia that just infected every part of his life. And David himself said this feeling was worse than the actual physical attack. It's what forced him to finally quit, move, and get out of the state for good. So, David's story really shows us how fear can shift from a punch in the face to this long-term mental game. But our last story, this one takes us into a whole other kind of terror, the unseen threat, the danger that's been hiding right there, in plain sight, the whole time. And it all starts with a tired truck driver just trying to make a smart choice.
The guy is wiped. He's still got 3 hours to go to get home, and he knows he's too tired to keep driving. So he does what any of us would probably do. He pulls over into the corner of a gas station parking lot to get an hour of sleep. He wakes up, feels a bit better, and pulls back onto the empty highway with absolutely no idea that he is not alone in his truck anymore.
So he's been driving for maybe 20 minutes, kind of on autopilot in the middle of the night, when he starts to hear a weird noise. It's this faint thumping, and it's coming from somewhere behind him, from the back of the truck. You know how your brain tries to explain things away? That's what he does. He thinks, oh, it's got to be a tool or something just rolling around back there. But the sound, it feels weird. It stops and starts in a rhythm that just doesn't feel like a random object. And that's when the exhaustion starts to wear off and this cold feeling of dread starts to creep in. Something is seriously wrong. And then, all of a sudden, bam! A huge crack from right behind his head. He turns, and there it is, the horrifying truth. There is a man standing in the bed of his truck, trying to smash through the back window to get into the cab with one of the driver's own tools. After a struggle, he manages to wrestle the truck to a stop, and the stowaway just bolts, disappearing into the woods. The driver, completely shaken, checks the truck bed to see what's going on, and he finds something that isn't his. It's a trash bag, wrapped up really tight, about the size of 2 fists put together. And as he gets closer, he sees it looks wet, and there's this horrible smell like rotting meat. He wants nothing to do with this thing. He grabs the foul-smelling bag and just hurls it into the darkness off the side of the road. As he jumps back in his truck to get the heck out of there, he glances down and sees that his hands are now smeared with something red. And the sickening idea of what was really in that bag just hangs in the air as he floors it. You see, all 3 of these stories, as different as they all plug into a fear that's much deeper than just getting hurt. It's the really unsettling idea that these normal, everyday places we pass through, places that are supposed to be safe, can be hiding some really dark secrets. It's the fear of the unknown, right? The danger that might be lurking just outside the light. So think about the journey we just went on here. We started with visceral fear, that direct, violent attack. Then it evolved into the slow burn psychological fear, the dread of being watched. And we ended with the unseen fear, that terrifying moment you realized the danger was with you long before you ever knew it. It really makes you think, doesn't it? A gas station on a dark road is meant to be a safe spot, a beacon of light. But what these stories show us is that the scariest things aren't always what you can see. It's the car that passes by one too many times. It's the noise you can't quite place. It's that gut feeling that you're not actually alone. The next time you pull in for gas late at night, you might just find yourself looking a little closer at the shadows. And that's what you should take away from this.